Welcome to this week's edition of the Inquiring Cat Does Politics. I've got some notes this week because there's a lot to cover, and I'll be talking at the end about some guest appearances we've got coming on the channel, which I'm very excited about, some fireside chats we're going to have. But today my initial theme is around waste. And we saw at the beginning of this government, they said they were going to have a war on waste in the public sector. And a few days later, the common man like me was horrified to see that the government or the civil service had spent £1,200 each on 2 leather folders, gold embossed, for ministers to be able to wander around Downing Street with their papers in. Now, you could say, okay, it was very early in the administration. But since then, a lot of you won't be aware, I think, that in the last week, the government has spent £90,000. Yes, I know it's a drop in the ocean of the national budget, but when I was growing up, I had a money box, and on that money box it said, "Big oak trees from little acorns grow." In other words, save your pennies and the pounds look after themselves. Do you know they've just spent £90,000 refurbishing the wood panelling in the Downing Street media room? Yes, that room that was only built a few years ago by Boris Johnson, it hardly had any use. What on earth have people been doing that has been necessary to refurbish all the wood panelling at such vast expense? It's crazy. You know, in the corporate world, out here where we actually have to make money and not run up debt, if you go in to do a corporate turnaround job on a company, the first thing I would do is look and see if there's any newspapers on the desk or the table in the reception area. And if it's something that the organisation was paying for to be there every day, I'd cut the subscription immediately. It's a very good signal that there's a change and a new marshal in town. And the second thing I'd always do is get the finance director to do a complete audit of all the mobile phones that are on contract to the organisation, because you would be amazed at how often organisations find when they do that, there are lots of mobile phones on contract which the staff in question no longer even work in the place and don't have the mobile phone. They're languishing in a desk somewhere. So there's lots of waste that needs cutting out of the civil service, but the trouble is the civil service just don't get it. They've not worked in a private enterprise type environment, let alone been actual entrepreneurs having to control the pennies and the pounds. So thinking that the civil service is going to effectively cut waste is something that is for the birds, in my opinion. And Rachel Reeves says you can't have a 5% increase in your budgets and more money unless you cut expenditure. Well, hang on a second. If you cut expenditure and then you immediately replace it with the 5% uplift, you've gained absolutely nothing. And we're still in the same poo-poo financially as we were previously. But then, as we know, the government's struggling to understand Economics 101, the basics of running an economy. Now, the other thing I want to talk about on waste is our prison estate. I was really buoyed when Lord Timpson was elevated to the House of Lords as the prisons minister. Timpson has a fantastic track record as the chairman of Timpson's, the shoe share repair shops, of employing ex-criminals, successfully rehabilitating them and making them genuine contributors to society and paying tax and all the rest of it. But sadly, since the election, Lord Timpson has been silent. Now, there isn't really a prison problem in this country in terms of capacity. That's just a lie that's been swallowed up by everyone, because there's an enormous prison on the Isle of Wight that's mothballed, that has at least 1,300 beds capacity that could be brought back into service. But far more intelligent than that would be to say, why are we sentencing people at all? I know people who have done prison visiting, and they say that so many of the people they meet in prison, they feel shouldn't really be there at all. So I've done a little bit of research, and I've got some statistics for you. So there are 87,726 people in English and Wales prisons at the moment, and 47% of those, yes, nearly half, are in prison for 12 months or less. That's 41,231 people in prison for a year or less, and yet it costs us nearly £52,000 for each of those people to be in prison for the year. Total cost, £2.1 billion just to cover half the prison population. So if you were to put a tag on them instead, and let's face it, we have the technology, it's been around for a long time, we have the legislation to allow it to happen, And if you said to people, I'm not going to send you to prison for 1 year, I'm going to tag you for 3 years instead. It costs £4,800 to put a tag on someone for a year. In other words, £198 million per annum to tag those 41,000 12-month sentenced offenders. And that would save us £1.9 billion a year for the first year. And of course, it's going to cost us £198 million for year 2 and year 3. But the saving is massive against having people in the prison population. But in a society sense, it's also much better to keep people out of prison. Prison is like the Hogwarts of the criminal community. There are plenty of people who go into prison for minor offences and get corrupted and build connections that allows them to be more criminal thereafter. So if you allow people to stay at home with their families, connected with society, and carry on doing their job, but tagged, you keep a taxpayer, you reduce the tax expense of keeping them in prison, and the chances of them being rehabilitated and not reoffending are vastly improved. It's such a simple thing to do, and they should do it. Now, you may say to me, well, yeah, but hang on, some of these people on 1 year sentences, they don't lose their job because they didn't have a job. Well, that's easy. What you do is you just turn around to them and say, we need people in the building trade because, as I said last week, Dear Keir has announced that there are nearly 15,000 jobs going to be needed to build the new AI data centres. And of course, we've got to build 1.5 million homes during the life of this parliament, and we don't have enough people with building skills. So you just compulsorily say, if you're not going to prison, you're going to be tagged and you're going on this training course. And there are plenty of jobs in construction that can be done by women just as well as men. And so there's a real win-win-win of going down that route, I believe. And for those that do have to be incarcerated, let's say the 50% that are more than 12-month sentences, then I believe that we should be linking probation to skills acquisition. And Lord Timpson should be putting these people in prison, very often who are illiterate. The level of illiteracy in the prison population is extraordinarily high. And that, of course, comes back down to parenting and the education system. Big subject, not for today. But if you said to people in prison, we're going to put you through a building skills course, and if you pass various milestone NVQs, your period of incarceration will be reduced. You can apply for probation earlier and parole earlier. Then I think that would be, again, a win-win-win for society and for the prisoners to get them out and about and contributing. Because if they know they've got a guaranteed job and they could be given guaranteed accommodation when they come out, rather than being thrown out of the front door of Wandsworth Prison with a sleeping bag and 20 quid or whatever it is, it's something pathetic, there's a good chance that they would integrate properly into society. So that's my big tip for that. And meanwhile, Rachel Reeves has been out at Davos telling everyone how Britain is open for business and is on a fantastic growth trajectory. Well, here at Terra Firma UK, we don't see that. And her speech was really just aimed at the international investment community, not for us, the domestic audience, because she's desperate for inward investment. Well, inward investment is a good thing. But the reality is that we have 80,000 more people unemployed during November and December last year as a direct result of the budget. And when you look at the 3,000 people that Sainsbury's is now going to lay off and close down their coffee shops, they have said that part of the reason for that is because of the on-costs of employment, with national insurance rates going up, the national insurance threshold coming down. And then Unite, the union, starts stamping their feet and saying, oh, this is disgusting, Sainsbury's made millions of pounds of profit, and why are they doing that? Which, of course, completely overlooks the fact that the Sainsbury's workers, and in fact Unite members across the whole country, their own pension funds will be in part invested in companies like Sainsbury's. And it is the job of the directors of the big retail businesses to make sure they keep increasing profits, improving the shareholder returns, which in turn helps the pension funds of the Unite membership. You can't disconnect the two. So what else have I got to talk about? Well, in my film last week, you may have had the impression I rather like Mr. Trump. Wrong, I do not, but I did think that his speech was full of optimism and was upbeat. The common man is being seriously hit with the cost of living, whether you're in America or here or across Europe, and this is why you see the rise of the populist parties, in my view. The average bloke, working class bloke, realizes that his wages have not gone up with inflation and he's poorer. And the result of that is that people are turning away from the mainstream parties because what they want is common sense action, decisive leadership, and dynamism and optimism. And that is what Trump portrayed in his speech at his inauguration, even if some of it was nonsense, and even if of the 200 and something presidential edicts he signed off from the Oval Office, the Resolute desk that Queen Victoria gave America, even if he was doing all that, it's already been proven that there are a number of things he can't possibly do without big budget changes or without Congress changing the Constitution. Never say never, but these are things that he will find somewhat difficult to achieve. So when you have a political party that stands up and starts saying, you know what, foreign criminals should be deported immediately, which I would be in favor of, and I would actually go further. I would say that if the breadwinner or the adult in the room commits a criminal offence, then their nationality or their ability to live in Britain should be suspended or removed. So any immigrant coming into this country should be on probation, in my view, for 5 years or something like that. And if they commit a criminal offence in that time, they should be thrown out of the country. Their right to reside should be rescinded, and they can take their family with them. Oh my goodness me, the European Court of Human Rights will be jumping up and down, and all sorts of NGOs will be saying, oh, you can't treat children like that. But I'm afraid I think you can, because the consequences of the parents' actions is they are responsible for their families. And if they know that not only will they be deported, but their family deported with them, then you end up with the whole family working together to try and keep people on the straight and narrow if they have any criminal inclinations. And I think that's okay. People say, oh, it's a very right-wing policy. I don't think it's right-wing. I think it's common sense. I think it's decency. And it's about not wasting money on people who are too dependent on the state and are abusing our hospitality. We have got quite enough criminals of our own, thank you very much. We don't need the 10,000 and something others from other people. So, just coming on to another subject on Trump. Did you see that he's launched his own crypto coin? This is, to me, the ultimate scam because he's responsible ultimately for crypto legislation. It's just unbelievable, but it's the sort of stunt that he is famous for. He owns 80% of it, and of that 80%, it became the 19th most valuable cryptocurrency within a matter of days of the inauguration. It's fallen back a bit since then, but he's made him about $8 billion on paper. Of course, if he started selling, it would fall in value. And I think that's the Ponzi scheme of all time. Unbelievable. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this little rant today. And good news about coming up. We have a leading light from the Liberal Democrat Party who's coming on to do a fireside chat. We have also got, somebody's trying to phone me in the middle of this diatribe. We also have a leading light from the Labour Party coming on and from the right of politics. So we look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you for watching and cheers for now.